Well, let's see if the A's can get back on the winning track in Cleveland.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's. This is the daily podcast where we talk about for right now, Oakland A's all season long. I am your interim host, and who knows, by the way this may be going on, I might be here all year. And by the way, thanks for some of the nice notices, but who am I? My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Normally, I'm the host of the Locked On MLB podcast. We cover the whole league, and I'm still hosting that. I get 5 new episodes a week of that, and here on Locked On A's. I jumped in here because, well, there was a hole in the host spot. Our former host had some had to leave for for various reasons. We nothing against him, but there was a hole here in the A's roster for the Locked On Podcast Network, and I decided to jump in because there's a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about in terms of the move to Sacramento, the lunacy with the Las Vegas situation, but also on the field, they're not the Astros. They're actually doing better than some teams that had very high expectations, and they're taking some teams by surprise. Now, one way you should not be taken by surprise is by going to Monopoly Go, where you can bring out your competitive nature. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. It is for all of us whose competitive side, needs to be fed. Monopoly Go is the mobile hit twist of the classic Monopoly game. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free at the App Store and at Google Play. So the A's had several series in a row where they came out on the winning side. Well, it didn't quite happen against St. Louis. They dropped the first 2. But it's a weird thing, isn't it? If you lose 2 out of 3 games in a series, it's better to win the final one. I don't know why psychologically. You avoided a sweep. You dusted yourself off. It's the same if they had won the first game against St. Louis and dropped the last 2. We'd be like, man, that stinks. But they lost the first 2, but won the last one. It's like, hey, they salvaged something. It's all psychological. Now, coming up for the A's is a series against the Cleveland Guardians. The Guardians beat the Red Sox today, and I don't know if you're paying attention to the American League Central, but as of right now, the Guardians are sitting alone on top of first place. They played the Red Sox very well. They've won 13 out of their first 19 games, which is tied right now for the best record in the American League. They're tied with the New York Yankees. The only teams with better winning records as of right now are the Atlanta Braves, and that's it. Now, of course, it's way too early to look at standings and everything like that, but Cleveland, who had a ton of questions on their ball club this year, not the least of which was the fact that it looks like they're going to be losing Justin Bieber probably for the rest of the year, have come out looking very, very strong in a very winnable division. Now, lest we forget, the A's were smacked around a bit by Cleveland at the beginning of the year. But like in the St. Louis series, they salvaged the final game on that weird bases-loaded walk. From that moment, that sparked a pretty good run from the A's. Now we're going to see if they can continue that run moving forward. On the game that's being played, chances are you're watching this Friday morning. I am recording this Thursday evening. Boyle is going up against Tristan McKenzie. Now, to be fair, Boyle's stats are not exactly sparkling right now, but you kind of have to take some of that with a little bit of a grain of salt, because his last few games, Boyle, he pitched well against Washington, pitched 5 innings, only let up 1 run. He got the tough luck loss, but still, he pitched well. He had pitched well against Detroit in the previous game, where he pitched 5 innings, did not let up a run. His ERA is gigantic. His ERA has an area code on it, mainly because in the first game this season, he let up 8 runs in fewer than 3 innings. but he's only let up 1 run in the final 10 innings that he's pitched. So his ERA and everything is a little blown out of proportion. But there is something to look at with him and with the A's pitching staff in general. If they could get 5 decent innings, now they had a day off. Thursday was a travel day, so the bullpen is rested, did I mention, ready. If they could get Joe Boyle to give them 5 decent innings against Cleveland, and Cleveland is a weird team. Cleveland's bats are, they obviously they have Jose Ramirez, who's off to an okay start. He's driving in a ton of runs. And Josh Naylor's played very, very well, thank you very much, as has Stephen Kwan. But some of their other players, like Jimenez, has been, they've been up and down. Bo Naylor's been up and down. They've not exactly been bringing back memories of Carlos Baerga and Albert Bell. If they can win that first game, if the A's can get a good performance from, get a good start, like they did the last good time from Joe Boyle, the A's bullpen right now is one of the best in the American League. Michael Kelly's pitched really well out of the bullpen. The pride of Menlo College, Lucas Urseg, has pitched very, very well. And the A's have dusted off what looks like a budding, legitimate all-star closer in Mason Miller. The 3rd-round pick from the 2021 draft has come in, and right now he has 17 strikeouts in 9 innings against only 4 walks. Now, he let up 2 runs pretty early in the season, but he has been throwing gas and has saved 4 games for him. Now, I think saves are a questionable stat at best. I don't think they tell you a whole lot. But the fact that this team strikes out a lot of batters out of the bullpen, have a good ERA, and can basically, you hand this team a lead in the 6th or 7th inning, and chances are they're going to pull ahead. Split the first 2 games is what the A's have to do. Split those first 2 games and then take a chance in the finale. The A's, people have been writing in some of the comments and people have been putting here on the YouTube channel and on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram, have said, we're not really concerned about the team. We're concerned about this, that, or the other thing, about losing them and this. But you know what? They're gone. They're gone. They're going to go to Sacramento. Now I may be the Sacramento of this podcast. Sacramento's supposed to be a temporary solution. They may be there for a decade. I may be here for a decade doing Locked On A's and Locked On MLB. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But while we're here, let's enjoy it. That's been my mantra. That should be hashtag while we're here, let's enjoy it. Maybe I should put that as a banner or something like that. And the fact of the matter is, yes, the Texas Rangers are starting to play a little bit better. They got off to a bit of a slumpy start, but it looks like they're starting to right the ship. It's the American League West, and right now, no one seems to be running away from it. And we're really about a month and a half away from honestly being able to pay attention to the standings. But get some of these teams back on their heels and at least try to stay ahead of the Astros. If for no other reason, if there is something to shoot for, that is to finish ahead of the Astros. In fact, if the A's do that this year, they should raise a banner. We're better than the Astros. Wouldn't that be a glorious thing? Wouldn't that be a fabulous thing? How did we get here? Well, this is the anniversary of a period of time which really was a beautiful turning point in Oakland A's history and brings up some what could have been. I'm going to talk about that anniversary. Plus, I'm going to think about another what could have been that could really have just been fixed by money. We're talking right now about our friends from Policygenius. Policygenius is the nation's leading online marketplace for life insurance. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage, not $100 million. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Life can be unpredictable, and Policygenius can take away some of the worries of what your family would do if something happened. Policygenius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found their best fit for their needs with Policygenius. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. Now, we've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure if your team can pull out a win. And that's when you dig deep, lift your head up and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your product to your buddies. There's so much to do. Pay on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get rewards to climb up the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. I think you should make the switch if you are watching sports on TV all day long. Move away from Fox Sports and ESPN and head to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this day in baseball in 1981, the Oakland A's pulled off their 11th straight win to start the season. That's what they did. That's what they did. And this was significant for a couple of reasons. First of all, they had started the season 11-0 with their 6-1 win over the Seattle Mariners. And with that, the A's had a new swagger. There was a new excitement for Oakland A's fans. And it basically sparked the team, who played only a little bit over 500 the rest of the way and had a big strike in the middle of the season, but sparked the team to go all the way to the League Championship Series. Now, why was that significant? That's significant because, remember, the A's were the team of glory in the middle of the 1970s. You don't believe me? Look, there's the World Series program right there. They're the only team not called the Yankees to win 3 straight World Series. And they did so with an unlikely group of players, led by the likes of Catfish Hunter, Reggie Jackson, Captain Sal Bando, Campy Campaneris, Vida Blue, Blue Moon Odom, Joe Rudy, Raleigh Fingers. We all know the names. And they won 5 straight division titles and 3 straight World Series titles. Now, one of these days, I'm going to break down how the destruction of that A's dynasty, which was brought about by the advent of free agency and Charlie O'Finley not willing to pay the huge salaries, the chances of Finley building a great team in the ashes of it were really thwarted by Commissioner Bowie Kuhn. He stopped several moves made by Finley that may have led to some Oakland glory a little quicker than they had. That's a different podcast. However, the A's were awful in 1977, where Vida Blue was really the last remaining great player on that team. By 1979, they were 54 and 108, and it looked like they were on their way to Denver. And a big reason for that was the fact that Finley wanted out of Oakland. Does that sound familiar? Denver wanted a team badly, and Finley basically needed to sell the team because he was in big trouble with a divorce that he was going through. And the Denver conglomerate was willing to buy the A's and move them into Mile High Stadium. However, with the Raiders on the way out, Oakland couldn't fathom the concept of losing two teams. Imagine that. So they orchestrated a deal to have the Haas family buy the A's from Finley. Now, to Finley's credit, he left some good players there. Mike Norris was brought up through their system, as was Rickey Henderson, the single greatest player in the history of the Athletics franchise. And a couple of shrewd trades, including trading Phil Gardner to the Pittsburgh Pirates, brought them an all-star in Mitchell Page and an eventual home run champion in Tony Armas. One of the last significant things that Charlie O'Finley did as the owner of the Oakland A's was hire Billy Martin. Billy Martin was fired a bunch of times already from the Yankees, and he was fired after the 79 season for getting into a fight with a marshmallow salesman in Minnesota. I swear to you, that's a true story. That's not a Mad Lib. So in came Billy Martin, East Bay native, sparking the team. And with that new ownership with the Haas family, and the A's made it back to the playoffs. Now, they happened to get thumped, ironically, by the Yankees. And if anyone knows anything about Billy Martin, I've read several biographies of him. He loved success, and he loved absolutely sabotaging his career. Having Billy Martin on your team meant a great burst and eventually a sense of, we got to get this guy out of here. And his great sin in Oakland was wearing down his wonderful pitching staff, having to throw complete games left and right, and also trial balloon hints being sent by Steinbrenner that a Yankee job was waiting for him. He got fired from the A's and was gobbled up by the Yankees a minute and a half later. But the A's went from absolute laughingstock, disgrace, terrible situation to suddenly being a playoff team again in just a couple of years. And with the new ownership came that incredible moment in A's history. Much like the eclipse that we just had here, the things lined up that even with the 3 straight World Series championships, the A's couldn't get the fan base going, couldn't get attendance going, and there was thoughts of them moving elsewhere, whether it was to New Orleans, Denver, or a bunch of other places. But what happened in the 80s with the new ownership and with a new mindset was eventually the A's surpassed the Giants in popularity. When my family moved from Massachusetts to the Bay Area in the mid-1980s, the A's were the team. I went to many games at the Oakland Coliseum where it was packed. The A's were playing in the better of the two stadiums, which is more of an indictment of Candlestick Park than it is praising the Oakland Coliseum. But they hadn't built Mount Davis yet. They had the big green pasture out there and the handheld scoreboard. The place was jam-packed in Oakland. The Stars played in Oakland. And the Haas family put together the quality product. And it was the Giants, despite them winning the pennant in 1989, that desperate to build a new ballpark, whether it would be on China Basin or in Santa Clara or San Jose, could not get it together. Couldn't get the ballot measures made, and they were going to be the team to move. And it really started in 1981 when new ownership and a sign of, hey, the A's are here and they can still win. Billy Ball wasn't the long-term success, but it was kind of like the harbinger. You can put a winning team in Oakland without it being a Charlie Finley crazy horse. And eventually what happened was, for a period of time, the best run organization in all of baseball in a stadium that was filled. And a lot of that began right when the A's started the season so brilliantly. What could have been? And another what could have been revolves around not just the A's playing well, but taking advantage of geography. And if only they had dug up the money, because in the end, that's all that was standing in their way. Hey, do you know what PrizePicks is? PrizePicks is the #1 fantasy sports app in America with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Just pick more than or less than on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on playoff action. I know the Warriors are out, but hey, maybe there are a lot of Sacramento fans listening to us and they want to get on the Kings. Win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you win the best players take the game to a new level in basketball's postseason. PrizePicks is the best way to get in the action in more than 30 states across the country, including Texas, Georgia, and right here in California. PrizePicks even offers injury insurance, so your entries can stay and play even if your players get injured. For baseball games, if you have a player who registers 2 plate appearances or less, PrizePicks will have your back and not count that as a loss. PrizePicks is simple to play. You can make your picks, submit your entries in less than 60 seconds. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions and special offers for the biggest moments in sports. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. You heard me. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB. First deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. Do you know what? It's that easy. Here's a quick reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day, with local extras on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. In a few weeks, I'm going to be posting a video here on the Locked On A's site about the different places where the A's could have gone, the different places in the Bay Area, Fremont, San Jose, Howard Terminal, all the different places. But in 2005, and really kind of frustrating looking back at this, there was a wonderful proposal. In some ways, the most logical proposal, and one that, do you know what? It absolutely breaks my heart when was doing the research for this about how close it came. I was looking at an old article at sfgate.com that was dated August 12th, 2005 by Glenn Dickey, who was a San Francisco Chronicle writer, about the A's unveiling of their new stadium plan. This was a whole ownership ago. Lou Wolf. Now, Lou Wolf, his legacy is complicated in Oakland. I do understand that. But I do get the sense he wanted to have the team in Oakland. I got the sense he didn't want to scram. And in August of 2005, which was part of the great run they had in the early 2000s, it was the year before they went all the way to the League Championship Series in 2006. He unveiled plans for a ballpark that would be just north of the Coliseum, built mostly with private funds, and would include a hotel, housing, and retail outlets. And it would have a 35,000-seat ballpark that would include shops, a hotel, apartment buildings, and the design of it was glorious. It kind of looked like Petco Park in San Diego. It had an old-time feeling of the park, but there also had great green areas there. There were buildings attached to it, so you could imagine you'd be in a hotel room, kind of like they have in the Rogers Center in Toronto. By the way, the one time I went to Toronto was with my pop many, many years ago. We stayed it was called the Sky Dome back then. and we stay in the Sky Dome Hotel, where you open up your hotel room and it overlooks the ballpark. You could be in your hotel room watching the baseball game. We didn't do that. We watched it in the stands. But think about it. You got to have an apartment building, everything there. It would have been basically a city. And it would have been just north of the Oakland Coliseum. That big open space where they have swap meets and everything like that. And the owner of that space wouldn't pay or wouldn't sell for what the A's wanted. Now think about this. The absolute SHIT show. I'm trying to get an MA rate here. The SHIT show that has become the A's stadium, propose this, propose that, this, that, and the other thing, hadn't really built up steam. The stadium that the Giants have, which at the time was called Ballpark, I think. I don't know. Well, it's now Oracle Park. You know, that stadium was only 5 years old. It still had that new stadium smell to it. And the enthusiasm for Giant fans saying, hey, we don't have to play in the dump that is the stick anymore. We have a beautiful ballpark. The notion of both teams can't survive really wasn't there yet. It hadn't arrived yet. And if the A's had a brand spanking new ballpark as well, it could have shown that the area could have supported two teams, or would have at least have had the enthusiasm of a solid A's team that still had Eric Chavez and Barry Zito and a bunch of the players who were, Jason Kendall, that whole squad that went to the ALCS in 2006, playing in a beautiful state-of-the-art ballpark, basically in the same neighborhood. All the advantages of the BART station, the highway, the parking lot, all that would still exist with this ballpark. But you would then start to build a new community around it. You've seen that in Anaheim. There is a whole kind of village of apartments and retail that are surrounding the stadium in Anaheim right now, where if you look back when they first built it, it was basically a sea of tar with a stadium right smack dab in the middle. This is what could have happened with the A's. If only the money was found for whoever the hell owned that lot. If they could have done that, this would not be an issue right now. Now, new ballparks don't always mean a massive influx of brand new fans. Just have to look at what happened in Miami. But there's a lot of issues with Miami as well. In fact, Miami doesn't have issues. Miami has a subscription. But I look at that, and I'm going to post a link to the article in the show notes. But take a look at that. Take a look what could have been. And what happened after that when that didn't work, that's when it started getting weird. That's when they started looking at Fremont. That's when the battle over San Jose started. That's when they started basically throwing darts at anywhere all over Oakland, including Jack London Square, including, Laney College, and just some of the things that made no sense when that was the plan that made sense. And it didn't happen. The glory of the A's post-Finley began on this day in 1981. And when they couldn't acquire that land right above the Oakland Coliseum way back, 19 years ago? And here we are 19 years later, and they still don't know where they're going to play. But I know I'm going to be doing these podcasts, and I thank you very much for supporting us. Go to Locked On A's on Twitter, or whatever the hell it's called now, on Instagram. And you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about good A's for now and great A's of the past. This has been Locked On A's. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, and I'll be here for a while, so please call me Sully.